For lab 3, we're going to use this thing called Blender on tracking features. All right, so Blender is a open source kind of VFX tool. And I just got to go here to Blender and download the latest release. All right, so we downloaded Blender. We're going to open it up. Our splash screen is going to have a bunch of different types of files, and we're going to go to VFX. All right, so the first thing, we're going to go to this open, and we're going to open the video that we have for our lab 3. And then I have all of these different captures that we did. Okay, open one of them up. All right, so it's going to always come in as this, like, you know, the wide view is horizontal. Sure. So in this case, Sarah's going to be walking down, but I don't really care about the orientation of the video. We're just trying to detect these features. Okay, so come up here onto the left side. There's this track tab, right? And we're going to go set scene frames. And what that did was it just now expanded this graph here so that it incorporates all the frames of the video. Then we're going to go down to this tracking settings. We're going to make this 50 and this one 100. And these can be variables. But I like those numbers for right now. And then we can look at this thing where it's like, what do you want to track? Do you want to track location and rotation of that object? Do you want to just do maybe the object change size, so we have to do scale, location, rotation, scale. It says that the tracked feature can do anything. It can move, it can rotate, it can get bigger or smaller. Let's do location and rotation, and if that doesn't work, we can go to location, rotation, scale. All right, so this one first, and then we'll zoom in. We'll zoom in with the mouse wheel, and then click the mouse wheel to move. So rotate the mouse wheel in, and then you kind of zoom in into your little feature you want to track, right? You hold Control, press click, and it's going to get a square around your little feature, and you can move this the extents of the square in, right, and kind of get an idea for the feature you want to track and the boundaries around the feature, right? So come up to this right hand tab, track, and it'll show you like kind of a preview of that track location for all the frames. Okay, the other thing we want to do is come down. We want to normalize. That gives like so like if there's any lighting changes, the normalization will keep track of the lighting change. And then if, say, we have bad tracking, we can come over here and say match previous frame, and that'll like continuously update the thing we're tracking. Otherwise, we can do this match keyframe. All right, and there's advantages, disadvantages to that. So for right now, we'll do keyframe, and then the next pass we'll try to do this previous frame deal. Okay. The extra tracking settings, you have a correlation factor. So correlation is from 0 to 1. 1 means that the tracked feature is highly correlated to the new image, the deformed image, like as it moves in through space. So a 0 value for correlation would mean that it doesn't look anything like the thing you're trying to track, right? So in the rest of the video, you know, the background and stuff, all this stuff over here doesn't look anything like this orange dot, right? But look, this dot looks a lot like it, right? But it's on a gray background and on a black background. So it would have a lower correlation score. Okay, so this 0.75 is kind of a threshold that we would like to set for the program to say anything below 0.75, just ignore it, and we'll only look at features that have a correlation score above 0.75. Okay.
Sure.
So now we can press E and go, or hold E and go to track markers. So you're just moving your mouse to the right and then let go of E, and it'll start tracking that marker in the camera view. Okay. So then we can, if we want to scrub back and kind of look at how this marker, make sure the marker has done a good job of tracking. All right, yeah, it looks like it's pretty continuous. So we're going to keep that track, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now we can add more features to track. So kind of come in and zoom into the other features, control, click. All right, you can bring this in. This is the area.
Why don't you just like almost narrow down completely on the circle? It'll just be too hard to pick up, or
You want some background around the circle.
okay.
All right, so if you just go all the way in, and now it's just going to look for a green dot in the video. So if there's a green dot in the background, it'll try to pick that up.
Gotcha.
So we want to include some extra kind of feature recognition, right? So that we can track this green dot. Okay. So we're going to keep all the features, all of our things the same, and hold E, track markers. And this is going to go through the video. And oh look, Blender kind of got confused a little bit. So it ended at this keyframe. So we go back to the last known good keyframe, and this blue part is like where it thought it should have been, and this red part is tracked features. So we have to come over here to our little track window and bring our yellow dot back into the center of our feature, so that Blender knows, hey, this is going to be a good location, and go back to track markers, and it'll keep going, right? So sometimes, you know, these markers don't do a very good job of tracking, so we have to keep going back to the last known really good location for it. And you know, you can change your bounding box settings and things, and then keep tracking. So sometimes you get really nice.
Anywhere where it like peaks is probably like a point where it went somewhere weird.
Yeah, most likely on these. Anytime these values down here peak, that does correspond to some extra noise. So you can come in and move this here in this view, or you can move it in this view. So E, keep tracking. And the more contrast you had on your markers, the better it's going to track. So in this case, we have these circular markers, and that wasn't such a good idea, which is the reason why we had the students go ahead and use the tape stripes.
Sure.
So the tape stripes in general do a much better job at these feature tracking. All right, so we're at the kind of the end of the video here, and I'm not going to worry about this anymore. It's going to have a really hard time as this moves out of frame. But we have two features we tracked so far, which are pretty good. We can kind of scrub through and make sure, hey, our feature is indeed kind of in the center of this tracking window the entire time. Right? And it looks pretty continuous. So a couple things to note up here in this tracking area. These white dots is kind of where we had to readjust the track, right? So on this track 1, we had to adjust it, looks like 6 times or so. All right. The other thing we got to do is kind of come back and name these things. We do that by just clicking on the track we want. We can come in here, select the shoulder, come up here into the track folder, or the track tab, and we can write shoulder. And then come down to the knee. Okay. So now we want to try to export this track. You know, we made this these X and Y coordinates over time for our track, and we want to export that into like an Excel file, right? So our downloads folder for the BME class, and in there should be a Word document that says export tracking data from Blender. We're going to copy this code and just to the left of our tracking window here, we're going to come up to the top and our cursor is going to change into this kind of crosshair thing. We're going to click, hold, and drag it over. And then at this this little button here that allows us to change what this thing does, we're going to go to the text editor, right? So now this window that we dragged over is now a text editor. Click on New, copy our code in, and then we're going to go and try to find a save location for the data we just processed, right? We just tracked. So we'll make a new folder here. We'll call this like walking track. We're going to copy the file path here and then double click on this word data and paste that in. All right, keep this slash tr everything.csv. Okay, just replace the word data with our file path. And what this is going to do is going to export any tracked features that we have with our corresponding name into a CSV file. All right, so just press run. It's just this triangle over here. Press run, and in our walking track,
doesn't like the file path name.
all right.
It's kind of funny.
So one thing you're going to need to have, all of your whole file path has to have forward slashes, no backslashes. All right. So in here, we're going to have our tracks for the knee and shoulder. Open this thing up, and it's going to have a space delimited deal, right? So you got to come to column 1, Excel, go to data, text to columns, right? Delimited by not tab, it's by space. Next, finish. And now we have our positions of that tracked feature for the shoulder, and we can plot them. All right, so this one now is plotted all weird, right? Because the video was vertical, but we can just kind of change the position of each one of these things. We could just move this over, move that over. Now we got a horizontal video again. Okay, so here's the shoulder track over time. And we know this is time from left to right because X, Y is space, and each one of these dots correspond to a frame, and the frame has some frame rate, right? We should be able to detect, and from that, you know, we can talk about overlaying this data with the force plate, which is going to have a different data rate, right? So you're going to have to play around with syncing those two data together